Welcome to Women and Resistance, a powerful podcast where we honor the courage, resilience, and revolutionary spirits of women across the globe. Hosted by Aya Fubara Eneli Esquire and Adesoji Iginla, we uncover untold stories of defiance against systemic oppression, whether colonialism, racism, sexism, or economic injustice. From historic icons like Winnie Mandela and Fannie Lou Hamer to today's trailblazers, we shine a light upon those shaping a more just world. This is a call to honor the past, embrace the present, and build an empowered future. Yes, greetings, and welcome to another episode of Women and Resistance. I am Adesoji Iginla, and Women and Resistance is born out of the need to center the role of women in our liberation. And we are going to go down the spiritual route today, and we're going to center ATETE, a spiritual goddess familiar to the people of the Oromos, which is centered in modern-day Ethiopia today. And my sister will be embodying what that spirit denotes, and she will also be giving us a walkthrough on what that entails. And in the course of time, ask pertinent questions of how that ties into our modern-day experience. You're welcome.
Thank you. So, in the part of the world where my people reside, although my people are all over the world, it is already what we would consider the new year by some, if you're using the Gregorian calendar. So happy new year. And in some other parts of the world, it will still be considered 2025. So this is a very interesting time that we are living in.
Yeah.
And I am very grateful to be here and to talk with you about something that I hope will be very helpful to all of your listeners, whether they listen today or at some other time, as they chart the course of their lives. So thank you for the invitation and for the day that you have chosen for me to join you.
Thank you for coming through.
Let me start off by helping to situate who the Oromo people are. The Oromo are one of the largest, as we will call it today, indigenous peoples in Africa. Using your language, they would be considered one of the largest ethnic groups in Ethiopia, the area now called Ethiopia. We are a Kushite people. Our language is from the Kush grouping of languages, and our culture, our language, our political systems, and our spiritual traditions, which I will focus on later, predate the modern Ethiopian state by many, many centuries.
Okay.
So when we speak today, while you might locate us in this landmass now known as Ethiopia, if you hear my words carefully, we predate Ethiopia, and we actually have spread out way beyond that original landmass. We were not a single centralized kingdom, but we were what I could say, the language is difficult to translate, but you could consider it a constellation of related groups,
Okay.
and confederations of groups of people. But we were bound by a shared language, Afan Oromo. We were bound by a shared spiritual philosophy, Waaqeffannaa. We were bound by a shared legal and political tradition, notably the Gada system. So when they tell you we did not have structure until the invaders came, you must know this is untrue. We were also bound by strong systems of oral history, ritual, and collective memory, which we passed down from generation to generation. And for much of our history, my people were an organized society without monarchy. I know we like to say we descended from kings and queens.
Kings and queens, yeah.
But at the time when we began, when we trace back our stories, we relied instead on age-grade governance, consensus, and rotating leadership. And if you know that the leadership is going to rotate, if it's going to go around, guess what? You focus more on justice because you know what goes around
comes around. Yeah.
So some scholars today have located the early Oromo homeland as being in what would be considered the southern and southwestern Horn of Africa. These areas today will be considered southern Ethiopia, northern Kenya, and even the regions bordering the Ethiopian Rift Valley. But we also expanded northward and westward over several centuries. Some of the scholars trace this expansion from the 14th century to the 17th century. The movement was not a sudden invasion, but a gradual process of migration, settlement, alliance, and an absorption of other peoples as well. But to be clear, we were indigenous to the Horn of Africa and not migrants from outside of the continent. And most of our expansion coincided with ecological pressures, of course, population growth, and regional political shifts, of course. Having located that, the language has always been central to our identity. And even what people know about me, ATETE, today, is encoded in our language. Oral poetry, praise songs, protest songs were all used to preserve history. And there are also some written texts that you will see that evoke who I am. There were proverbs that encoded our social ethics and certainly our gender relations, which I have to admit have been troublesome for a long time. But our ritual language connected spirituality, land, and moral law.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is not your Western type of justice of who can win, but doing what is right.
Okay.
So when there is an issue, it's not about who has more money, who can hire the better advocate. It is really addressing what is right and meting out law according to the moral code of the land.
Okay.
You should note that despite centuries of suppression, especially during the imperial Ethiopian rule, Afan Oromo remains one of the most widely spoken African languages, even today.
Interesting.
Now, to give you some background before I share more about ATETE, let me share a little bit about our spiritual worldview, if you will. Oromo spirituality is rooted in Waaqeffannaa, the belief system centered on Waaq, the supreme creator. Waaq as moral order, not as a human-like ruler. Nature, land, water, trees, are spiritually alive. Women as vital spiritual intermediaries. Ethical law, which we called Safu, governing relationships between, and listen to this, between people, nature, and the divine.
People, nature, and the divine.
Exactly. The ethical law spoke for nature. Even though nature supposedly had no representative, it did have a representative. And I, ATETE, was one of the representatives, the advocates for nature. Within this system, female spiritual institutions, as they would call it, or as they would call me as a goddess, which is the terminology Westerners have put on it, played an essential role. Some have relegated it to just fertility and childbirth. But it was more than that. It was ecological balance. Under our form of spirituality, we will never have the climate issues you have today. We could not, because we understand and respect the divinity even in nature, in the trees, in the soil, in the land, in the water, in the animals, in the birds, in the fishes. There was a moral accountability, and there was a woman's collective resistance to violence. Beginning in the late 19th century, though, much of our territory was incorporated into the expanding Ethiopian empire under northern rulers, and this period brought about a loss of land, suppression of the language, forced conversions to Christianity and Islam, and marginalization, of course, of our governance systems and our form of spirituality. And you see, many of us adopted Islam or Christianity, but what did not die were still certain elements of our indigenous spiritual ways of being. Some of our rituals retained form. Some of them were camouflaged, and some of them were buried under the new social ethics. But if you looked and if you understood what you were seeing, you would recognize them. So today, my people, they reside mostly in Ethiopia, especially in the Oromo region. They're also in Addis Ababa and in some of the surrounding areas. We're in Kenya, particularly in northern and eastern regions near the Ethiopian border. And of course, all over the diaspora in the United States and Canada, in Europe, UK, Germany, Scandinavia, even in the Middle East. So important that you're having this conversation with me, and I will tell you more about myself. But you have to understand that I am a representative of my people. So I first center my people. My people matter. This conversation matters because knowing my people and my history is to understand that African societies had governance before the colonizers, the savage ones. It is to understand that we had systems that demonstrated non-monarchical kind of systems. We didn't have monarchies. That we had, listen, show me where in these Western systems that you are following, where you really have democracy. It has been elusive to them. But our systems really did have democracy. It was a participatory kind of political system.
Okay.
Every age group participated, and every age group was respected and had their role, and leadership rotated. To understand my people and our history is to understand women-centered spiritual institutions that reveal pre-colonial African ways of being. So today, when we act like white women came up with the notion of women are humans and should have equality, that is a struggle they had with their men. This patriarchy is something, by and large, in the way it is practiced today, that I would say African men, through religion, have taken on and oppressed African women, but it wasn't always quite that way.
Correct.
And I need to remind my daughters of our power, not power over, but power with.
Okay.
And I need to remind my sons as well how do you oppress the one from whom you come from and expect it to be well with you? When you study my people, you have a better understanding of the ongoing struggle of empire and religion and modern states and these political systems, and maybe what we need to do differently to heal ourselves. So now that I have shared that with you, I would take any questions before I will now tell you more about myself.
Okay, in your opening dialogue, you mentioned the moral order of the Oromo society. So this question ties into it. Why do you think so many African spiritual systems place women at the center of the moral order? You are listening to Women and Resistance with Aya Fubara Eneli Esquire and Adesoji Iginla, where we honor the voices of women who have shaped history through courage and defiance. If you're finding these stories inspiring, take a moment to subscribe, share, and support this platform. Together, we amplify the voices that deserve to be heard. Now, back to the conversation.
The center, but that does not mean above or to displace men. Let us be very clear. We understand the importance of feminine and masculine energy. We understand the importance of both the sperm and the egg. But we also understand the importance of the womb, as it were. The importance of the land that nurtures. And if you poison the womb, if you poison the land, then that sperm, that seed, no matter how viral or strong, will perish. Therefore, you must nurture and protect and revere the womb, the woman, the one from whom life comes into the world. And if you study almost any indigenous people, any form of spirituality before these Abrahamic religions, that is what you would see, but not a setup to rule over, because a woman's role is not to then what, you bring a child in and crush it? No, but always for growth, for nurturing, for life-giving. It was never meant to be this adversarial thing that we have now seen set up. Let me speak about who I am. I am ATETE. My history has too often been told about me instead of through me. I am not a myth. I am not folklore. I am not a marginal spirit. I am not a footnote to patriarchy. I am your mother. I am a living memory of how women once governed life, justice, birth, and balance. Would any of you quarrel with any of these things? As I have shared with you, I come from the Oromo people, before conquest, before all these forced conversions, because that is what they do. They force you to become like them. Why? If what you have to offer is good, let people see it of their own. And if they so choose, they can adopt it. Why the force? That in and of itself should make us question. Before empire and colonization, my people, we understood the world as an interconnected moral system. Nothing exists alone. Nothing exists without consequence. Today, go and look up in the sky. What is the moon doing? Is that not based on where the earth is in relation to the sun? Are they not all interrelated? Go and see what is happening to the sea. Does it too not respond to the moon? Do not certain flowers open only when the sun comes out? Do not plants know when to bud and when to shed their leaves? Who tells them? We're all interconnected. How is it that human beings now feel that they can disconnect themselves with no consequences? This worldview of which I speak, we called it Waaqeffannaa. Waaq is not a distant ruler. Waaq is a moral order itself, and that moral order requires intermediaries, and that is where I lived. I was not separate from Waaq. I was how Waaq listened. I was how justice entered the human world. In Oromo philosophy, life is governed by 3 inseparable principles. You are practicing Kwanzaa now, also governed by principles. Principles make us able to live in harmony. The 3 principles that governed us: Ayan, spirit, destiny, divine energy; nature, creation, land, water, body; Safu, ethics, obligation, moral law, the divine; nature, what we see around us, including ourselves; ethics, obligation, moral law. All of them intersecting, and I existed at the meeting point of all 3. This is why I governed fate on earth. This is why drought, fertility, rain, childbirth, illness, war, and peace all fell under my care. When harmony broke, women called me. If there was an injustice in the land spreading, women gathered. When men would fail to uphold moral order, women intervened. My son, I saw something about this Western world you people live in. I don't know whether it applies to all of the West or just the part called United States of America. It said that in 30 days, an average of 800 women are killed by their male intimate partners.
Unfortunately.
It now also said that in the course of 5 years, so over a 5-year period, women kill about 785 of their male intimate partners. And because of this statistic, men are upset at women. You killed 800 in 30 days. Whatever the circumstances, in 5 years, women killed less than what you kill in 30 days. And now the problem is women. When injustice spread in my time, women gathered. When men did not uphold moral order, women intervened. Are my daughters still intervening? I was known as the power of life, abundance, fortune, and wealth. So glad to be speaking with you today. As you go into a new year, would you not like to call on my name?
It would be a pleasure. Yeah, yes, would be the emphatic answer.
For those of you who would like to know more about me, study Fridays, the days you call Fridays today, they are my sacred days. They are the days you play music, you lay out food, you talk to me, you tell me what is on your heart. The first days of the Ethiopian calendar remembered me. But unlike imperial religions, I did not require temples. Because gods do not require temples, divinity is everywhere. My shrine was women's bodies. My altar was the land. Now, I do not have to mince words. Even Oromo culture was patriarchal. Men did control the lineage, even during my time. Men controlled the cattle. Men, through the Gada system, did wield political power. And an all-male generational council governed leadership and law. However, women were not powerless. And I would dare say, if you go further back, even this was a distortion of how we used to be. Existed beyond male permission. Women held ritual authority. Have you not talked to one of my sisters who talked about the authority that we had that included political authority. Remember one of my Hausa sisters?
Yeah.
Until men started to erode that, and then they took on the political authority. We kept the ritual authority, and then the colonizers came, and then they took even the ritual authority. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes.
But we held on to ritual authority. We held on to moral authority. And the women held the collective enforcement power. Because you can have laws, but if you have no enforcement,
yeah, might as well not have no law.
women received through me sacred objects that were not symbolic. They were functional. The sink, a ritual staff that was carried by women, was a tool of protest and dignity. And you can go and look this up. It is written about. You will see it's written about.
A sink, you said?
Yes. And then we had the kanafa, Qanafa. It was a sacred piece of wood that a woman would wear during childbirth and during her postpartum period. And it marked a woman as untouchable. These objects did not just decorate womanhood. They enforced law. My rituals, they were not abstract theology. They were lived. It was our lived spirituality. I don't want to call it religion. We wore these scale beads that were consecrated to me. The beads were prayer, memory, and accountability. Today, Muslims have prayer beads. The Catholics use rosary. No one calls that demonic. But you want to demonize our culture. Women gathered herbs after ritual feasts. They prepared barley, porridge, butter, honey, wine, homemade beer, and coffee. They sang invocations over the food and drink. They called my name out loud. ATETE Hara, ATETE Jimbi, ATETE Dula. They will ask me to watch their children. They ask me to protect their bodies. They ask me to guard their cattle and their land. And on these nights, when these women revered me, I would come and visit them, and they would enter a trance. That is what the colonizers and foreigners would call it. Now, when their spirit enters people, it is okay. It is the Holy Spirit imparting spiritual gifts and knowledge. But when it is our spirituality, now it is a trance and demonic and all of those things. Go and study the Zar form of spirituality, ZAR, and you will see remnants of the Oromo form of spirituality. But for the Zar, it has become more male, more patriarchal. Even that ritual space that women have on the Oromo, the men in Zar have wanted to take that over. When these women are overcome by my spirit, what they are getting, let me be funny today, is a download of ancestral intelligence. Today, you people are chasing what you call AI. But me, ATETE, we had, and we still have, the original AI. It is ancestral intelligence. But you have to prepare to receive it. You must prepare your body and your mind. Is today, as you end one year and go into a new year, is that not a great time?
Prepare for, yeah.
To ask for the intelligence of your ancestors, to ask to be reminded of the things that are embedded in your DNA that you have forgotten how to tap into. My daughters and my sons, any situation that you have that you're dealing with today, I guarantee you that we have a solution, an answer that lies in the ancestral wisdom of your people. There is nothing you are dealing with that they have not seen and dealt with before, but you no longer seek their intelligence. You seek that of the very people who have shown you time and time again that their only goal is to use and destroy you. This ancestral intelligence would advise the women. It would warn communities of what was coming. It would reveal what was hidden. This power I passed from mother to daughter, from daughter to daughter, from daughter to... Do you understand me?
Yeah.
Men resented this and they often tried to crush it, but they failed. As Oromo women were displaced, as they were enslaved, as they were married beyond our homelands, I did not desert them. I traveled with them. This is how we spread into Amhara regions. This is how we moved into Sudan. You can find us in Zimbabwe. This is how we crossed the Red Sea into Arabia. Do you know that my name changed? But ATETE, I did not change. My essence did not change. Outsiders will call it possession. They described all kinds of things. They go and look at it. There are writers who wrote, oh, the women, they would lose their minds and they would climb a tree and they would crush glass and they would eat hot embers. Does that not then speak to my power? They were describing things with words that they could not possibly capture the essence of who I am and what I represent. I tell you, I stand at the intersection of divinity and nature and moral law. What do they know about that? What they did not know that they were witnessing as I traveled from place to place and my names changed. Ha! From ATETE, some places they even started to call me Maram, then Miriam. What they were witnessing was continuity. Women carrying governance in their bodies when formal power denied them that space. In my most radical form, I am about resisting violence. Let me tell you a story. During Kwanafa, the sacred period after childbirth, when a woman is protected by divine law, not just amongst my people. If you go, you even look amongst the Igbo people, there's a reason why you will see age groups. It's like every 2 years. Because when a woman has a child, that postpartum period where she's nursing her child, no man is coming to touch and force her to sleep with anybody. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Correct.
That is her time to get her body back, to nurse her baby, to recover of everything that happens when she gets pregnant and nurtures and brings forth a child. During that sacred period after childbirth, a woman is protected by divine law. Her comfort is mandatory. In most indigenous cultures, we have a period where that woman, she will not fetch water. She will not cook. Am I lying?
Correct. That's
correct.
correct.
Other people will come and cater to her every need. Her safety was non-negotiable. And during that period, if a husband struck her, there is no negotiation. She did not suffer in silence. She would leave the home and she went directly to the Council of Senior Mothers, known as the Saditan Hamfala. And what followed was collective action. All the women would abandon their homes. Let me tell you, if the women today say they want equality, they can accomplish it maximum 72 hours. And my daughter's listening to me. 72 hours, but it has to be collective action. Every woman, get up from where you are. You are not cooking. You are not having sex. You are not doing any wifely or womanly duties for anybody, even self, except for that child you have to breastfeed. Leave the children for him and just the farm, the chicken, anything you're doing, whatever job just abandon it. Gather with the women and just have a good time for 72 hours. Pray, sing, eat, sleep in peace. And then see if they will not come on their knees and ask, what is your list of demands? and perform every one of them. So in our time, all women abandoned their homes. Every woman in the village participated unless physically impossible. They gathered with sink, the SINQE in hand. They marched in procession. No one could cross their path. No one could interrupt them. To do so invited illness, madness, and ruin. Male elders would approach carrying green grass, a sign of submission. They spoke together, asking to be spared the woman's gaze. Do you not study? Listen, go and study indigenous women across the world.
Yes.
You will find different forms of this type of collective action. When women would take off their clothes and say, okay, the elderly woman, okay, this is what you want, and the whole society stops. Women decide what comes next. Sometimes reconciliation followed. Sometimes compensation was required. Livestock was sacrificed. Feasts were held. Balance was restored.
Oh, yeah.
If the offender refused accountability, because every once in a while you get someone who is truly mad in the head, women then invoked Abarasa. Abarasa Sinke, a curse calling on Waak to withdraw protection. This was not superstition. It was social enforcement backed by spiritual consequence. See, now people do not fear spiritual consequence. And they know if I have money, I go to court, I can bribe and no consequence. And that is why you see things all scattered. No moral law anymore. This is what women-led restorative justice looked like before modern courts. Then came the erasure. Christian missionaries renamed me. Islamic reform movement condemned me. Colonial authorities dismantled indigenous governance. Women lost ritual grace. We lost our space. They lost collective leverage. They were told this loss was progress. Today in your cultures, a woman will have a child today and tomorrow be sent home from the birthing place and told to go and fend for herself and her child. What form of savagery is that? I shudder. But today, even reduced to childbirth rights, I survive. Because memory lives in bodies. Because women still remember that they want to feel safe. I am still here. I am present whenever women gather collectively, whenever they organize together. I am present whenever mothers demand dignity. I am present in movements that link justice, ecology, and care. I am present even when women refuse isolation. I am ATETE, and I'm still here, still responding to those who will call on me, still living within you. If you will but tune in. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you today.
No, thank you. I mean, you've taken us through a tremendous explanation of what it means to have African spirituality, and also underscore the reason why anytime we had colonial interruption, it was the first thing they went after. Anything that holds the community together is the first point of call. And so we now understand why our spirituality has largely been erased, although it's making a comeback in pockets, but we need to do much more. One final question before you go. How do we as a society now bring back some sort of communal effort towards understanding who we are? Because we live in a very fast-paced world. You talked about the level of violence that exists in our societies. But how do we take a pause? We're going into a new year for, according to the Gregorian calendar. How do we take a pause, pause, reset, and, channel a better course, as it were?
My spirit wants to just hold all of you in my arms and just hum and just rock you like your mothers and your grandmothers used to rock you when you were infants. Do you remember those times when maybe you were hungry or just agitated for whatever reason, and they just take you to their bosom and you can hear comforting beat of their hearts. And sometimes they may just start to hum underneath their breath, and they're just rocking you. And whatever it was that had you upset just disappears. You just have this peace that comes over you. You don't even have the thought process, the ability to really process it, but you just know you're safe. My prayer for each and every one of you, no matter how fast-paced your life is, no matter whether you are living in a mansion or huddled under a bridge, that you make some time out today, tomorrow, and the next few days, and you turn off all those things that draw your attention all the time, and you just transport yourself back into the arms of whomever once loved you. Because all of you at one point were rocked. I don't care if it was not your biological parent. If someone didn't hold you, you wouldn't be here today. It's something called failure to thrive. So somebody must have held you. So whoever it was, transport yourself back to that time and just allow yourself to go back to that place. Maybe this time you're the one doing the humming. Maybe you're allowing yourself to be at one with nature. Maybe you're sitting on grass, or you can see a plant or a tree next to you. Or you're feeling the wind or the sun on your face, or you're by the water, and just take a moment, really, more than a moment, to remember how you are connected to everything in the universe. In this pause, notice, if you could, any living thing and how somehow the Divine One provides for it. The ant, even the cockroach, whatever it is, the birds, somehow they get something to eat. And while you're in this place, I welcome you to ask for what you need. And I encourage you to make some concrete decisions about how you are going to live differently to be able to have and maintain what you are asking for. So when you ask me, how do we pause in this moment? That is it. Just pause. It's a choice. And when you make that choice, I promise to meet you there.
Ashe. Thank you very much. And thank you to our listeners who have stuck around all through 2025. As we go into 2026, we hope to continue Women and Resistance. And in that, guys, we're looking at the lives and times of Alice Donegan next week. Join us again, same time, as we sit and speak to Alice Donegan and see how she did our bit to push our liberation through struggle, of course, and why we should learn from what has gone before. Like my people will say, if you do not know where you're coming from, you might not have an idea of where you're going. So with that said, thank you, ATETE. Thank you for everyone, all the super chats on this podcast, on African News Review. Until next year, which is to some people a couple of minutes, a couple of hours. We are already in 2026 in the United Kingdom, where I am based, and hope to see you on the other side of 26. Again, thank you all for coming through. Until next week, from me, it is good night and God bless. That is it for this episode of Women and Resistance. Thank you for joining us in amplifying the voices of women who challenged injustice and changed the course of history. Be sure to subscribe, share, and continue the conversation. Together, remember, we honor the past, act in the present, and shape the future. Until next time, stay inspired and stay in resistance.